let's begin. This week we are on the Torah portion of Vayeira. And I want to talk about what it means to be a good host and or to have good hospitality. In this week's Torah portion, there are two examples of hospitality. One is a good example of how to be a good host, and the other one, not so much. In chapter 18, we have our hero Abraham. He is sitting at the entrance of his tent in the hot, hot sun. And he sees out in the distance, far away, 3 men approaching the tent. He doesn't wait until he knows who they are or which tribe they're from or whether or not they're Jewish. But Abraham, at 99 years old, and just 3 days after his circumcision surgery, he jumps up and goes and greets them and invites them into his and Sarah's tent. And we soon find out that these 3 men are angels. And it is from this story that the rabbis of the Talmud state that hospitality to strangers is greater than an encounter with Shekhinah, the divine presence, our God. As you know, in our world, we are often suspicious of strangers, sometimes for good reasons, and often not. And rather than welcoming the stranger, we often treat them as the other or a threat, rather than a potential new friend. And at its core, Judaism has a long history, a deep connection, a long tradition of welcoming the stranger and hospitality. Another one, which happens in chapter 19, which is not a good example, is where Lot, who is a relative nephew of Abraham, has 3 visitors. Lot lived in the city of Sodom, and the idea of hospitality was contrary to the values of Sodom. Lot learned the value of hospitality from Abraham, and Lot has to protect these 3 visitors from the crazy locals. Now let's just agree to call this hospitality gone wrong. Now Lot is not exercising good judgment and somehow believes that being hospitable to strangers means he has to give up his own daughter. My guess is that Lot has allowed a rigid interpretation of a religious demand to cloud his sense of humanity and judgment. I believe that many of us, myself, I need a spiritual base to ground ourselves, because without a spiritual base, we might be inclined to make selfish decisions and to have a selfish outlook. And in the end, being a good human to other humans is what God really wants from us.
All right, that's it for today's lesson. And if you have any questions like always, just snap me.